So delivery ko lang mo. Otro punto que me da la versión de otro punto que me da la versión de Ridicule.
So I request
Yes, audible. Yes. Ronju, yes, audible.
sir.
Yes, Ronju, audible.
Am I audible?
Yeah, audible.
So good morning, everybody. So before starting, I would like to request all our participants to mute their audio. So 2 minutes, 1 minute's time left. Exactly at 11, we will start. Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Respected respected Principal of Nandalal Borgohai City College, Dr. Sanjeevananda Borgohai, sir, respected resource person, So I request all to unmute. Respected person, Dr. Swami, Faculty of Economics, South Asian in New Delhi. So, first of all, I, on behalf of Sinamar College, welcome all you to this online platform. Today in this webinar, our topic is environmental impact assessment notification of concern. So this webinar is organized jointly by IQAC and Department of Economics, Sinamar College, in collaboration with Nandalal Borgohai City College, Dibrugarh. The topic that we had chosen is much in discussion during last few weeks in the national and regional media. As you all know, under the Environmental Protection Act 1986, India notified first environmental impact assessment norms in 1994, setting in place a legal framework for regulating activities that access, utilize, and affect natural resources. Under EIA norms, every development project has to assess environmental consequences for obtaining prior environmental clearance. The 1994 EIA notification was replaced with a modified draft in 2006. Earlier this year, government redrafted it and brought environmental impact assessment notification 2020. Now, this notification is open for public debate up till 11th of August. And many experts were of the view that this notification has great consequences on environment, especially in Northeast India. And one more thing is there, that this notification, which was brought in, I think in March, and we have to give our feedback up to 11th of August. And as this notification has many concerns, and many environmentalists were of the view that this notification is unable to strike a balance between environment and development. That means there are many areas of concern in this notification, and today our honorable resource person will point out all those areas of concern which are there in this notification, because we have to give our feedback within 11th of August. So today's webinar will point out many areas of concern in this notification. So now, to start this webinar, now I request our principal, Dr. Anjan Saikia, to deliver his welcome address.
Namaskar. At the very outset, it is my privilege to bestow my sincere gratitude Dr. Sanjeevananda Borgohain, Principal, Nandalal Borgohain City College, located in the district of Dibrugarh, and one of my intimate elder brother like friend who will inaugurate this national webinar. Esteemed resource person, Dr. Binoy Goswami, one of the distinguished faculty members, Department of Economics, Southeast Asian University, a new emerging university of the country located in New Delhi. Esteemed principal friends, faculty members of different colleges of the country, environmentalists, scholars, learner scholars present in this national webinar, jointly organized by the Department of Economics and IQAC of our Sinamara College, located in the southern part of Jorhat district. Honorable scholars, the theme of the webinar in this critical juncture is very serious. The theme is that environmental impact assessment notification 2020 areas of concern. The theme is not only thought-provoking from academic point of view, but also it is more pivotal issue to restore our environment from various points of view, particularly in the context of Northeast India for today and for tomorrow. In view of this perspective, it is my moral duty to focus some basic outline on this vital issue in my welcome address in brief. Learned friends, it is the fact that draft environmental impact assessment in short, EIA notification 2020 was circulated on March 23, is open for the public comment until August 11. In the West, it is only 2 days more. The EIA was set up in the midst of 1990s as a legal framework under the Environmental Protection Act 1986 to safeguard local communities from the environmental and socio-economic impact of projects that assess and utilize natural resources and provided a platform for public consultation in development in decision making. Contrary to the spirit of the Act, the draft EIA 2020 seeks to dilute this from the same environmental regulation to facilitate ease of doing business in India. Respected scholars, not only that, the Environmental Impact Assessment 2020 will drastically deliberate the whole existing balanced ecological system of entire Northeast India, one of the important biodiversity hotspot of the world. It is veritably that world scientists, environmentalists, along with the United Nations, has frequently been placing appeal to the people, to the world community to protect the environment from further damage in order to prevent the occurrence of impending climatic change, which pragmatically ensure the extinction of all living creatures of the world, including man. Moreover, entire inherent spirit and intention of the draft is totally contradictory as per international environmental dictum announced by UN. In fact, Northeast India as a whole is well known for its rich forests and cover national beauty in attachments of large number of rivers draining throughout the heartland. The role of forest and its importance for protecting bodies of water and a climate has been known for a long time. The environmentalists and also scientists of the world have frequently been appealing to expand forest cover as much as possible in order to check the impending climatic change. Even the most contentious technocrats admits that destruction of forests would spell catastrophe. At this backdrop, the newly draft EIA notification 2020, which is going to replace the existing EIA 2006, is contradictory from concerned environmental protection. Any form of change in the existing one has direct bearing on living and livelihood of the people, living organism, biodiversity, plant cover, and as a whole, the ecosystem. Eventually, newly proposed EIA 2020 put preference on the approval of project without having any prior assessment of the probable impact on environmental conditions of the surrounding region. The most significant change in newly draft is the provision of post facto project clearance and abandoning the public trust doctrine. Project operating in violation of Environmental Act will not be able to apply for clearance. It is a total reiteration of a notification March 2017 for projects operating without clearance. The border area of northeastern region would cover much of the area within the notified 100-kilometer distance from international boundary, which is one of the most vital diversity hotspot of the world. In consequence, no space will be left for securing ecological balance in presence of such a drastic directive. Moreover, clearance given to build big hydropower projects in the river of the Himalaya part without any assessment on environmental impact is quite detrimental. The Himalaya rocks are young and soft, and therefore it cannot bear the load of such heavy hydropower project and has all possibility for devastating effects in downhill areas. In addition to the river water reservoir developed along with the hydropower project will submerge several thousand square meters of fresh forest of areas, which in turn severely damage the existing environmental condition of the region in particular and of the world as a whole, as entire region will converted from carbon sink belt to the carbon emission belt. In consequence of all this, the proposed development will bring severe devastation to the people, property, and natural setting of the region. In addition, Northeast is already affected by flood, erosion, landslide, loss of livelihoods, and history of conflict. Under this critical juncture, what will be the relevance to observe World Environmental Day, Rashtriya Bon Mahotsav, and various environmental programs of Eco Club in near future? These are the vital questions in this webinar. Considering these vulnerabilities, the draft EIA 2020 notification is an existential threat to the socio-economic and ecological stability of the entire Northeast India. In bird's eye view welcome address, I have focused this vital issue within my limited knowledge. In this context, we may quote the famous comment of M.K. Gandhi that art provides enough for everyone's need, not for some people's greed. My ever-respected friends, we have organized this national webinar from academic point of view in order to have a distinct idea over this burning issue, and also to create a strong root of environmental awareness among the learned section of the country. Anyway, our invited distinguished resource person will be hopefully able to reflect various ramifications in this vital issue on the basis of empirical research and richly documented evidences. At last, conveying my deep sense of gratitude and I expect a grand success of this webinar in the lab. Thank you.
Thank you.
Principal sir, in his welcome address, raised concern on this draft EI notification. He is of the view that this draft notification is having such clause may adversely affect diversity region. Moreover, in his welcome address, is concerned the contradictory feature of this notification. And now I request the supervisor, principal of the supervisor to please welcome. Over to the supervisor.
Are you audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you are audible.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah.
Good morning.
Ranjo.
Yes, you are audible, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. A very good morning to one and all. I'm really happy to be a part of today's national webinar on a topic of great relevance. That is Environmental Impact Assessment Notification 220, Areas of Concern, which is organized by the IQAC and the Department of Economics, Sinamora College, Jorhat, in collaboration with IQAC, Nandalal Borgoi City College, Dibrugarh, Assam. This webinar will focus on certain pertinent key concerns relating to Environmental Impact Notification 2020 under the aegis and expertise of our invited resource person, Dr. Binoy Goswami, Faculty of Economics, South Asian University, New Delhi. As you are aware of the fact that rapid modernization, economic development, growth of industrialization is in a way a boom for all of us. But there is also another side of the picture. All this has happened or perhaps have continued to happen without the least bother about what sort of impact it will have on the environment. Awareness of environmental protection is never a recent idea. Since the dawn of human civilization, man became a part of his environment. He observed nature's beauty and misery. Today, we stand at a juncture of time where focusing on mere development is thoroughly inadequate, given the sort of unplanned exploitation of the environment and nature leading to the depiction of natural resources. Now, we stand at a point of time where we shift our focus to what is called sustainable development. This concept has gained global attention and countries are adhering to ways and means based on sustainable development. In this broad concept of sustainable development, we have another key concern, that is environmental impact assessment. It is a process of evaluation, assessing the likely impact of proposed industrial infrastructural project on environment. Creation of EAS system is vital in order to carry on economic development project with deep concern for protection of the environment and also with equal concern for substantial development. I wish a great success and great academic sessions ahead. I would like to offer my thanks to Dr. Anjan Soikia, a dynamic principal of Sinamara College, and also to Ranju Bharali, who is the coordinator of this webinar, for giving the opportunity to inaugurate the national webinar, and also to the participants from different parts of the country for being a part of this national webinar. I would not talk too much, and without further delay, I declare the webinar open. Thank you very much to everybody. Thank you. Hello.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sanjeevananda Borgohain, sir.
Thank you for Ranju Bharali.
For your inaugural address. So it is my privilege to tell you all that Nandalal Borgohain City College is very cooperative with our college. We had done many academic ventures in collaboration with that prestigious institution. And in future also, we will desire to have many academic collaboration, academic endeavor with your great institution. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. We are always with you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So now it's time to come for the topic. Our resource person is waiting. So our today's resource person is Dr. Binoy Goswami, faculty of Economics, South Asian University, New Delhi. So it is my privilege to give his introduction. From 2014 onward, he is serving as assistant professor at South Asian University, New Delhi. Prior to it, from 2007 to 2013, he served as assistant professor at Dibrugarh University. He obtained his PhD from Guwahati University in 2013. Prior to it, he obtained MPhil in Applied Economics from Center for Development Studies, Tiruvananthapuram. His area of research interest is agriculture and natural resource economics. Over the years, he offered courses in environmental economics, macroeconomics, and basic econometrics. He wrote the book entitled Economic Analysis of Agrarian Institution, The Case of Tenancy. Again, he edited a book entitled Indian Agriculture After Green Revolution, Changes and Challenges. Besides, he contributed chapters in different books. Moreover, he had about 26 publications in national and international journals and presented a number of papers in national and international seminars and conferences. He is also a visiting faculty at Center for Economic Studies and Policies, Central University of Bihar. It is a matter of pride that he participated in planning and policy formulation of our state. He prepared a section, that is health sector of the approach paper for the 12th five-year plan for the state of Assam. Moreover, he has active participation in corporate life and membership of many professional bodies. So this is the very rich academic career of our resource person, and he is very much specialized in environmental economics. And today, the much relevant topic, which is raising concern, not only in all over India, but in Northeast. Basically, it is raising much concern. This topic, this environmental impact assessment notification, is raising much concern in Northeast. And for last few weeks, we see in our regional media that this topic is much discussed. So now, today, our resource person will focus on those areas which are of basic concern for the people, basically of Northeast India. So now, please welcome Binoy Goswami, sir. So it is over to you.
Thank you so much. And
thank you, sir.
Yeah, good morning to everyone, and thanks for your kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank IQAC and Department of Economics in Namara College, and IQAC Nandalal Borgohai City College, Dibrugarh, for organizing this webinar and also for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on the topic with you. So let me just share my screen first. Being allowed to share screen. Can you, if you just confirm whether I am allowed to share the screen?
So you can share, sir. You can share. You are made co-host. You can share your screen.
Because just give me 2 seconds.
Okay. Sir.
Can you see the PowerPoint? Can you see the PowerPoint?
So the screen is coming. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes. It came, sir.
Oh, I
It's
will
very much
make it
clear.
full screen. Just all right.
Okay.
I hope this is fine. Okay.
Yeah. It is very much clear.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So let me start by defining what is meant by EI, environmental impact assessment. So all of us know, I mean, it can be defined in many different ways, but this is the process for collecting the information about the potential impact of a development activity or an industrial project on the environment. And this information is put together in the form of one report, and that is put in front of the appraisal, the expert committee, who will go scrutinize this report, and on the basis of that, they will take a decision whether to give green signal to any development project or industrial project. The origin of this environmental impact assessment, it lies in the National Environmental Policy Act, which was passed in the United States in 1969. Thereafter, all the national governments, almost all the national government across the world, have adopted this. And with the concern, particularly after this 1973 energy crisis and establishment of the Brundtland Commission, who gave the often cited definition of sustainable development. So this concern for sustainable development became prominent, and all over the world, most of the countries started taking into account, while sanctioning any project, the concern for environmental sustainability, they started taking into account. And not only the national governments, even the multilateral funding agencies like World Bank, IMF, they have also started taking into account this environmental impact assessment aspect of the project that they would fund. So this is now a very much sort of a very routine exercise now, where before you take any development project or environmental project, you first do an impact assessment, environmental assessment study. Now there are 3 steps involved. The first step is the preliminary step, which is called screening, where basically you see whether you need a full environmental impact assessment study or not. If it is yes, then you go to the second step, which is called the scoping. Here, identify the relevant information. Relevant information what? About the key impacts of the, the potential impacts of the proposed project, development project. And this information is called the baseline data, which needs to be analyzed and compared to the environmental situation with or without that development. And this second phase of EIA constitute the impact assessments, where you would like to see what you also need to specify if in case there is any impact, then what are the alternatives that you have, how are you going to mitigate and all that. So all those things, information needs to be put into, during this set phase of scoping have to be provided. And then everything is put into one report, which is called the environment assessment report or environmental statement, which is then at the third stage is given to the committee or the appraisal committee, who will take a look at it. And if they need, we'll see whether that report is adequate. If they will also refer to secondary information, and of that, the final decision will be taken, whether process. Now, as far as this legacy of environmental impact assessment in the CERN, it has already been mentioned that with the introduction of environmental impact assessment notification 1994, this environmental impact assessment process was integrated into the Indian legal system. And thereafter, 11 amendments to this 1994 notification, 2006 notification was put in place. And now we have this 2020 notification. Now, if compare the original 2006 notification and the 2020 notification, you might think that there is huge difference. But if you read the 2006 notification, along with all the subsequent that had happened to this 2006 notification, you will find that 2020 notification is actually not different from the 2006 notification when you read along with the amendments that happened to 2006 notification. So you can say there are some incremental changes, like few more projects have been exempted from EIA. Public's, the scope of public participation has been reduced a little bit. So, you won't see much of a change between the 2006 notification and 2020 notification. But if you think like that, that is the most dangerous way to look at it. I'll talk about it, why I say that is the most dangerous way to think of the 2020 notification like that in a while. But at the moment, I would just like to say to read the 2006 notification along with all the subsequent amendments to it is just a few steps in the backward directions. But one thing that is, however, sure, and one would like to one would understand, if you just even if you take a cursory got the 94, 2006, and 2020 notification, that each subsequent notification has diluted environmental standards. Okay, so this is actually, somebody said that this is very contradictory, because on one hand, the very purpose of having an environmental impact assessment is to see that we don't have catastrophic effect on the environment. In other words, we ensure that development process is sustainable. On the other hand, when you look at the provisions in the environmental impact assessment notification, then we'll see this is giving a completely different signal. So why is that? We will also talk about this sort of contradictory position of the government. Now, what are the area of concern as far as this 2020 notification is concerned? Well, as I said, you can read 2020 notification in comparison with the previous notification, and you can look at the 2020 notification in isolation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at in isolation first, and then I will see whether or which are the areas where we have sort of as I said in the beginning, that it is just a few steps in the backward directions compared to a few more steps in backward direction as compared to 2006 notification. So I will bring up those issues also. So first and foremost, let us look at the areas of concern in the 2020 notification. First is the time and manner of putting up the notification. Now, as it was mentioned during the welcome address, that it was released for public comments on 23rd March, just right before the national lockdown was announced. And it was put in public domain for a period of 60 days, which was further extended to 30th June. And then when the Delhi High Court intervened, then it was further extended to 11 June, given the current situation, current pandemic situation. So it was further extended. Till 30th of June, it was available only in the ministry's website and available only in English and Hindi. Now, people in India, given the linguistic diversity, will not speak English and Hindi. So therefore, they will not have, if it is available only in English or Hindi, will not have access to these, even to have a look at it, notification. So the way this has been put up in a very hurried manner, and also the timing is very important. I mean, when the entire country is going through these pandemic situations, a lockdown, where there is restriction on public gathering, then how do you sort of carry out a public hearing and so forth? So the very manner in and the time in which this release, this notification has been released for public comment has raised this question whether government is very serious or really wants comments on this notification. That is first and foremost what I want to say about second of projects. If you look at the clause 26 of the notification, you will find there is about 40 items which do not require prior environment clearance or prior environmental permission. Now, not all of them, all those 40 items are full, but those 40 items also include, like, defense items, manufacturing unit, assets for Ministry of Defense, the construction or expansion of airstrips and all that. So these all those things, projects may have, will have potential harmful effect on the environment. So completely exempting those projects from prior environmental clearance or even environmental permission, it's something very dangerous. Then if you look at the clause 4.2 and 13.11 of the notification, it says that the category B2 projects will not require any environmental clearance. These projects will not be, proposal will not be put before the appraisal committee. You do not need scoping. You do not need environmental assessment report for these category B2 projects. Now you have three categories of category A, category B1, and category B2. For this category B2, again, there are a lot of projects, some of which I have listed here. So for manufacturing of acids, leather productions, then petroleum, synthetic rubbers, building construction, area development projects. These are only a few. I can't show you everything here. In the schedule that you have along with this notification, you can have a look at it. All the category B2 projects have been listed there. But many of these projects are actually polluting in nature and will have environmental implications. First, environmental implications. So this exemption is the list of exemptions actually become longer compared to 2006. Even in 2006, many projects were left, kept beyond the purview of environmental assessment. But this list has become longer, and which is a very, very dangerous thing. This is another thing. Now, when it comes to environment, you would assume that a participatory governance structure, that means public's participation in the governance of the environment, will be more meaningful because it's the local people who will have more knowledge about the local environment. But over the time, the space for public consultation, the space for public participation has shrunk. For example, at the time of public hearing, people will have only a draft EIA report. They will not have access to the final EIA report, which is very dangerous because the project may write something in the EIA report in the draft report, but what is submitted finally could be different. So ideally, people should have access to the final report as well. Notice period for public hearing, for public to provide any complaint, their responses, it has been reduced from 30 to 20 days now. Now, I was actually reading about the environment minister response to this. He was saying that anyway public hearing will be held only one day. So besides, why do you need even 20 days? So these are very, so then no postponement of the date, time, venue, which has become very difficult now to do that. A lot of bureaucratic process one has to follow. Then there is no quorum required for attending, for starting the proceeding. And then this is more dangerous, the last one, the clause 14.1.c. It says that the mode of conducting this public consulting, it doesn't have to be, the people have to gather physically. Now it can be recommended any appropriate mode. So right the way we are doing this webinar through this Zoom meeting, tomorrow I won't be surprised if this public hearing is also held through a Zoom meeting. So these are very dangerous things, and you understand that how effective a Zoom meeting would be as far as the public hearing is concerned. And then there are a lot of projects which have been exempted from public hearing. If you look at clause number 14.2, item from A to Z, all those items have been exempted for public hearing. Then preparation of environmental impact assessment report. Now there are two dangerous things which actually can potentially compromise the quality of environmental impact assessment. So if you look at clause number 13.2, it says that baseline data shall be collected for one season other than the monsoon season. Now, it is because even the seasonal variations, because in India the seasonal variation is so much, and the biodiversity responds to those seasonal variations. So what you see in one particular season, particularly as far as the biodiversity is concerned, in another season you might see something different type of biodiversity, and ecological sensitivity also changes with the changes in the season. So if you are collecting only for one season, then it's a very, again, very dangerous thing to do. And then the other thing is, to prepare an environmental impact assessment report, the project proponent can hire a private consultant, though it is certified by the government. But the point is, if it is not an independent agency who is doing this impact assessment report, but rather somebody which is being hired by the project proponent, you can very well understand that. And there are cases, you will get to know about it in a couple of minutes. I'll show that there are cases where the proponent, this consultant who prepares EIA report, they have actually provided wrong information and misguided appraisal committees. So this is again a very situation where assessment may get compromised. Then other concern is the issuance of standard terms of reference for certain projects. Now, all highway projects in the border areas, then existing projects having clearance, or building construction and area development projects. For all this, you will have a standard terms of reference. The nature of the ecological sensitivities or the availability of biodiversity border areas, western border, India's western border or eastern border, are not same. We know it very well. But if you have a standard terms of reference, so for all areas you are going to apply the same kind of scoping process, which is not a right to go about it. Then for the urban development, like building construction and area development, again, you can have same terms of standard terms of reference for all projects. In any case, India, now we follow sectoral terms of, so you have standard sectoral, for each sector you have terms of reference. Ideally, you should have project terms of reference. But if you have, a sector-wise terms of reference, but for this kind of projects like in border area or urban development, to have a standard terms of reference or scoping process is very actually dangerous. So and border areas, the implication of the border areas for the Northeast, already it was mentioned in the so I'm not getting that, because the Northeast can cover within that limit of 100 miles. So that's a very have a very bad implication as far as the Northeast is concerned. Then this is again something very dangerous. I don't know how many people have understood this, but this is something very understand, though on paper it looks like it is not so harmful. Now, for those projects which already got environmental clearance but want to modernize. So for those, as you can see this table, I have taken this table from the notification only. You can see up to 10% of expansion on modernizations. You don't need scoping, you don't need EIA report. It will not be put in front of appraisal committee. In fact, up to 50%, you don't need scoping. And in all this, up to 50% of expansion and modernization, you don't need public hearing. There again, you can see how the public role of the public has been minimized, and in fact, completely it is. So this gives an opportunity to for the project proponent to expand, modernize the project in a piecemeal basis. So you expand less than 10% today, then you again do 10%. So you can modernize without trouble of taking environmental clearance or preparing EIA or public hearing. On a piecemeal basis, you can keep modernizing your project. Then dealing with the violations. All right. First of all, the definition of the violation itself is a little problematic. If you, I think, look at definition of violation in the very beginning, the EIA notification gives the definition of many things. So in a violation, they define violation only as if without prior approval or prior clearance, if you start constructing, then only it is considered as a violation. The non-compliance with the terms of environmental clearance is not considered as a violation. That also signals the mentality or the mindset of the government. So again, I'll come to that point later about the mentality or the mindset of the government later. But on the specific clause on violation, the clause 22 of the notification allows the project owners to pay compensations where, so suppose if there are some environmental damages, then project proponent himself can prepare a report on that, and then they are just allowed to pay a little more than the damage that their project has caused and continue. So basically, you are allowed to damage the environment provided you pay for the damage. So it's not that it will be stopped. If you have got the clearance, you will be able to finish the project, just that you may need to pay for it. Again, another point I would like to mention here as far as the violation is concerned. It says that if there is a violation, by the way, one point I want to make here, if you read this notification carefully, there is a big admission coming from the government that in past there have been violations. So government itself is admitting the fact that the project proponents have violated environmental clearance in the past. Now, why has that happened? That has happened because, first of all, this notification says that the violation or non-compliance can be reported by the project proponent himself or by any government agencies, but nowhere it mentions that the people or people who are associated with environment, local people, they can report the violations. Now, ideally, one would expect that the area where a project is located, the people in and around that area, they are the, in a better position to know if there are any violations, because they are the first ones to experience if there are any violations. But they don't have any option, there any scope to report those violations. So that is one thing. Again, the public's role of people in the participating of the environmental management has been completely eliminated. Secondly, it says that it can be reported by the project proponent himself. Now, that is in this case, whether a project proponent will do that. Of course, there is an economic incentive for the project proponent to do that, because if you don't do it and later if detected, there could be fine. So as a student of economics, I would say there is an economic incentive that has been built into the notifications, which I guess is fine. But the problem is the effectiveness of that will depend on how effectively, how transparent monitoring process. Because who will monitor whether the project proponent has complied complied with the environmental clearance. It's the government agencies. Now, if you can manage the government agencies, or if it is that, in other words, if it is the monitoring process is not transparent, and the probability of getting detected, detecting this violation, if it is very limited, then the project proponent will not have any incentive to sort of report that violation on their own, even if there is a fine. So until and unless this monitoring and the report of that monitoring is made public and transparent, so it remains as a gray area. So while as a student of economics, I would say that imposition of the fine, thereby creating an economic incentive is good, but that will become effective only when the monitoring process becomes transparent, and if the reports of those monitoring be made public. So that's again it's a gray area. I will not call it a red zone area, but it's sort of it's a gray area. Depends how effective the money is. Then the concern with the clause 5.7. Now, the 5.7 says that all projects concerning national defense and security or involving any other strategic consideration, that will require only prior EC or prior EP, that is environmental permission from the Ministry of concerned ministry, and there will not be any public hearing. Now, this is very dangerous, and this particularly is a dangerous for given the border that we have with China and the problem that we are having in China. So any project there can actually be termed as a strategic project. And you have a project proposed by the government itself, you can very well understand that the clearance will also be given very easily. So this particular thing is very dangerous from Northeast. So in the welcome address, Dr. Saikia already mentioned about the dangers that we may have for the Northeast. So in my view, there are three things which are very dangerous or may have adverse implication for Northeast. One is this clause 5.7. Second, the definition of the border area. Third is that modernizations where up to 10% modernization hearing nothing. So because of the because the Northeast is ecologically rich, that all of us know. So given those provisions in these 2020 notifications, so these could actually have very bad impact on the Northeast. So there could be many other issues. I have highlighted the major ones, most dangerous ones. I don't have time to get into all of them in detail. So so now let me address another issue. So let me raise these questions. The concern that I have just discussed, are these new? Now, I already said that if you read 2006 along with all the amendments and compare it to 2020, it is just a few steps in the backwards. Some incremental changes have happened. Now, why do I say so? These I am some quotes from a paper by Monju Menon and Kansi Kohli, which was published in Economic and Political Weekly in 2007, Environmental Decision Whose Agenda. So I have taken this from that paper. They wrote this article in response to the 2006 notification. Now, as you can see, I have highlighted again here in red the problem areas. So they says, for the last 13 years of notifications, citizens' experience of their involvement in the, with the EIA, their role in the decision-making process has been and disappointing. Now, so that means even in 2006 also that problem as far as public participation is concerned was there. In many cases there were intimidation, violence, procedural irregularities. Politicians would try to sort of influence the public hearing, so on and so forth. So this is not a new problem. The concern that I raised about the public participation is nothing new. It has been there. This is a characteristics of India's environmental impact assessment process. And then an exclusion of many kinds and sizes of development, industrial projects and activity, which is again is the case, as I said, few more projects have been exempted in the 2020, but even in 2006, in fact, in 1994, if you read, 1994 notification was much better. There, the number of items is very limited. And as far as the expert committees are concerned, So there now, if you don't have technical knowledge, you cannot be a part of the expert committee. But in 1994 notification, expert committee also included people from NGOs and people who have concerns or have experience of working on issues related to environment. But no more that scope is there as far as the formation of expert committees are concerned. Then the other concern that this paper raised was in regarding the 2006 notification is, again, the EIAs continue to be funded by project proponents rather than an independent agency, which is again is the case here. Redressal mechanism available to public are weak. There is very little scope for participation of people. Then a lack of adequate and relevant expertise. And this is what I talked about, the formation of expert committees. So the point which I'm trying to make is this. So when you look at this article, these quotes from this article, you will understand, and you will now understand why I said that there is not much of a difference between 2006 and 2020 notifications. It is just incremental and sort of a few more steps in the backward direction. But I also said, if you think like that and become sort of complacent, then that will be the most dangerous thing to do. We should not be doing that. We should sort of raise our concern very vocally. Now, the last part of my presentation is I'm trying to understand the philosophy behind this EIA in India. So, like, why, as I said, if you compare 1994, 2006, and 2020 notification, you will see that each subsequent notification has diluted the environmental standard. Why is it happening? So, what is the reason? What is the objective because of which the environmental standards are being behind this environmental impact assessment was seen? Now, 1993, the government of India, that's Ministry of Environment and Forest on behalf of government of, took one World Bank funded called National Environment Action Plan. And that was the plan which this project, NEA, changed the clearance norm. Now, after this project, there's another project, EMC, which was again funded by the UN, that was proposed. And this project was essentially for providing technical assistance to government of India in implementing NEA, the first project, National Environment Action Plan. Now, in 2001, there's a important change that was the important change that was introduced to EMCV, the second environment management capacity building, and the object and that change was in the purview of environment assessment. And the objective of doing so was to improve the screening process or overall how this environment is done and the in the environmental impact assessment. So to improve that. Now, again, the same manner and colleagues refer to, they argue that the reforms that were introduced by World Bank in the area of environmental impact assessment through this project in one, that was the time when it was decided that environmental clearance decision on a project would be predetermined based on economic imperatives and fully biased towards mitigating based approach. That your between economic objective and environment protection objective, economic objective, economic growth, to be specific, is always going to get more preference. And they also go to the extent, this Menon and Kohli paper, they go to the extent of saying that it is now environmental impact assessment it's getting like any government document, like passport. All you need to do, so there are certain documents you need to submit and you list the mitigating measures. So in the violation, while discussing the violation clause also, I say that even if you violate, even if you cause damage, all you need to do is mitigation and you pay for that damage. So irrespective of your damage, you continue to carry on with your project. All you need to do is pay money for that. So this is what is the philosophy behind our EIA process. That is why that explains why our environmental standards have been diluted over the years in India, because now it is basically about, in any case, you will get an EIA, you need to list certain documents, the mitigating measures, all right? So you continue to do your activities, just need to pay for the damage. And basically from this idea that is provided by the environmental Kuznets-Curve. Now, all of you are aware with this environmental Kuznets-Curve. Now, what does it say? It says, as you can see, this inverted U-type Kuznets-Curve, that till you reach that turning point with economic development, your environmental degradation will increase. But once you are to the right of the turning point, you cross this turning point where you have dumping part of the environmental Kuznets-Curve. With further economic development, your environmental degradation will fall. That's as you grow. I mean, basically what it says, the turning point is the time till which you consider environment is a luxury. That means you still have to fulfill your basic minimum requirements of roti, kapra, makan. To reach the turning point, that means you have sufficient amount of development and you have to fulfill your basic minimum requirement. Then now environment becomes a turning point, and therefore people become aware, they start environmental quality. Now you can also source on developing technology. So there, and you can bring in strict environmental regulations for your environmental degradation will fall. We see implication of this environmental Kuznets-Curve. The policy implication is that you have to bother about environmental degradation, because as you can see, after certain environmental development, as you reach sufficient level of economic development will take care of environmental degradation. That means on its own, environmental quality will start improving. Now, this is a very, very misleading policy implications. Now, that you cannot reverse the process. That means it's irreversible. So there, what you need is a sustainable development, not this kind of development as suggested by the Kuznets-Curve, because it's a very misleading thing. What's taught probably in all college universities, that you don't have to take care of environment, but when you teach this environmental Kuznets-Curve, but this is very, very misleading, because as I said, by the time you reach this turning, emphasizing on this point, by the time you reach the turning point, you might have already caused irreversible damage to the environment. So in India, however, the underlying philosophy behind, the philosophy behind this EIA comes from this environmental Kuznets-Curve. That's why we have prioritized economic development for environmental protection, environmental conservation. So this is a very, very dense philosophy to follow, just as it is. Finally, my final slide is, what do we mean? So basically, many people might say that, if it becomes an act, it will be difficult for us to change. But I would argue, I would say rather we need an act, not a notification. Because if you have a notification, of course, a very stringent act, not in the current form of the notification, but if you have a notification, it is also very easy to keep on bringing in, bringing about changes, amendments. That's why you see there are so many amendments to the previous two notifications. But if it is an act to be through parliament, which will not be so easy, then environment clearance process has to be comprehensive. It has to not only all projects, all the sectors, but also macroeconomic and other policies also need to have environmental impact assessment. Okay, I'm even going to that extent that even the policies, macroeconomic or other policies, also need to have environmental impact assessment. If somebody asks me why I say that, I will say that later. If there is any question on that, right now I don't have time, so I'll not get into details of that. Then environment clearance process needs to be transparent and based on participatory governments. There should be more role for public participation based on public participation. It has to be done independently. It cannot be outsourced to a private firm, consulting firm. Objective of this should be shifted from utilization and traditional resource conservation. As I said, right now, it is about listing those mitigating measures, paying for the damage. But you continue to, even after creating huge damage to the environment, you continue to do continue to go ahead with your project, which should not be the case. And that is because your focus is not on conservation, but on utilization. And EIA should be carried out at least over 1 year, not in one season. And the compliance of clearance condition, the monitoring of that particularly has to be transparent. As I said, you might list huge fine for violation, but if the monitoring is not transparent, if people do not know what the government agency after monitoring of the compliance and there is a possibility of being an access between corrupt officials as well as the project proponents. So it has to be made, it has to be, there should be periodic review, monitoring of the compliance condition, clearance conditions, and also report of those reviews should be made public, and people should be allowed, at least the local people should be allowed to report the violation or non-compliance. Thank you. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Very nice and informative presentation by Binoy Goswami, sir. So we enriched a lot from this presentation, and I hope all participants has got and realized the concern from this notification. And now, after going through this presentation, now we are in a position to give some feedback to the government regarding this notification. Today, Binoy Goswami sir in his presentation pointed out about the various steps of environmental impact assessments. He also focused on the legacy of EI. He rightly said that 2020 notification is not much different from 2006 notification. If we compare 2020 notification with 2006, there is not much different. Although if we compare with 1994, then we'll get some differences. And he rightly said that each notification diluted the environmental standard. He raised many areas of concern. He raised concern on the time and manner of putting up this notification. He also raised concern on the various types of exemptions given to the projects. Various types of projects were given some exemption in this notification. He raised concern on this. And there is also concern on the space of public consultation. And in his presentation, he said that through this notification, the public role in such assessment is going minimized, is going down. And moreover, the dealing with the violation, there is concern regarding the dealing with the violation. Project owners can continue with their projects by simply paying, but just paying the compensation of what they had done to the environment. And there is also some concern about the definition of border. So the modernization of border area, actually this modernization of border area is much concern for the people of the Northeastern people. We all know that Northeast is surrounded by the international borders. And if border area development is given much important than environment in this as given in this notification, so obviously it will adversely affect the biodiversity of Northeastern region, which is highlighted by Binoy Goswami sir. And moreover, the redressal mechanism available to public under this notification is also very weak. And lastly, he also said about the philosophy behind EI notification in India. He said that the EI notification, the philosophy behind EI notification in India is brought from the environment Kuznets curve. The student of economics, they know about the environment Kuznets curve, and the philosophy of this EI notification in India is brought from this environment Kuznets curve. And in his observation, he said that environmental clearance process should be very comprehensive. And EIA need to be done very independently. So these things are highlighted by Vinay Goswami sir in his presentation. Very nice presentation, very informative presentation, and we learned a lot. We are enriched from this presentation. So now, time is short. There are a few questions from the participants. It is not possible to take all questions. So we'll take one or two questions. So one question is from Augustine Lushai. He raised a simple question: why is our government very lenient in protecting the environment?
See, first of all, before I answer this question, I want to say one thing, that I don't want to sound like somebody who is anti-development. As is concerned, these are genuine concerns. But it's not I am anti-development and I don't want development. I don't think none of us are like that. But the point is, if you are unmindful of the development or unmindful of environmental consequences of your development, then what is development for? What is the meaning of that development, right? So I mean, in Delhi, I stay in Delhi. Now during the winter season, particularly, the air pollution is so many child particularly will have, I mean, there are reports which say that, most of many child actually will have, they will not have fully developed lung. That is impact of pollution. Really. And it's common problems that all the during the common issues that all of us have. So if you are going to towards such kind of situations because of the development, then obviously one is bound to raise this question: what is development? I mean, we know time, but to think that we cannot, take these people out of poverty without damaging the environment is something, that philosophy I do not subscribe to. I do not buy that philosophy that we have to damage the environment, then only we can, take all these people out of poverty. So it is in that perspective one has to understand from where this criticism of this EMT is coming from. So that point I wanted to make. So as far as the question is concerned, why government is lenient? I mean, that is what I say, that that understanding comes from understanding comes from this environmental Kuznets-Kauf. Like, probably at some point of time when you have sufficient economic development, you have fulfilled all these basic minimum requirement, you have brought everybody out of poverty, then probably you reach that turning point in the environmental Kuznets-Kauf, and environment will be taken care of by economic development. So I think that is the philosophy, and that is why you see this, probably you see this leniency on part of the government, because government probably thinks that bringing people out of poverty is more important than taking care of environment. That's because since we are still to the left of the turning point of the environmental Kuznets-Kauf, environment probably is still a luxury for us, but the environment is not a luxury for us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And there is another question. If the public space has diminished, are we heading for authoritarian government? So this is a question.
That's a very political sort of question. But I don't think so. To tell you the truth, that's not my view. I don't think so. I would like to be very clear as my answer is concerned. I don't think so. And that's precisely is the reason why we are discussing it. So many, probably environment minister might have received lakhs of email. There are a lot of people have written about it. And I don't think so. My straight and simple question answer to that is I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question from Palas Setia. I cannot understand why government trying to implement such a harmful act in Assam. Actually, it is his observation. I can't understand why government trying to implement such a harmful act in Assam. So I think this is act not only for Assam, it is for whole India, but
Right.
the effect is different in other parts of the country and in Northeast, I think so.
That's yeah. I think it's not for Assam. It's for entire country.
Okay.
Just that, as you mentioned, the effects depending on your ecological sensitivity and biodiversity, effects are going to be different.
Okay. So, so at last, there's another question. So, in one sentence, what will be our feedback to the government regarding this notification for a common man?
So those concerns should be highlighted and sent to the government. That as the message is concerned, why we are more concerned about it, as in terms of the definition of border areas, then the piecemeal basis expansion of modernizations,
Yes.
and I think there's another thing that I mentioned, which I forgot now, and all other those things like about the violation and not having an independent agency to sort of prepare this EIA, all those, and particularly the space for public participation. Public
Yes.
space for public participation. So it should be a participatory. See, why I emphasize on public participation, because when it comes to the environment, it's the local people who have this knowledge of that. And if you do not give to the local people to participate, and particularly now, as I said, you can still participate in the hearing, but whether there is a compliance of the clearance conditions by the project proponent, public cannot report that. So there should be more scope of public participation and should be made more public participatory governance rather than a centralized governance system. By centralized, it's not centralized doesn't mean central government, but also the local government may also be involved. But it's not limited only to the government, but the public should also have the scope to report non-compliance of the clearance condition and so on. So I meant that.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true that the space for public participation should be increased. So actually, we as a people of Northeast, we are more concerned about this notification, and we can raise our voice only when the space for public participation is enhanced. So if everything is centralized, then obviously
Right.
it is not possible to raise our concern. So it is very nice observation that public participation should be enhanced so that we can give our concern, raise our concern, we can give our idea and regarding this notification. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So time is very short.
Thing I would like to mention. So the dilution in the environmental, I have already said, the successive environmental, this EIA notification has diluted the environmental standard. So this is not specific to any particular government or any particular regime. This has happened over the period of time. And that is why I emphasize at the end on the environmental Kuznetska, because all governments in India seem to subscribe to that philosophy of environmental Kuznetska. And that because probably the government thinks there's so many below the poverty line, we need to first take them out of poverty. And therefore, probably we cannot care about it. All that we are trying to say is that let's have a sustainable development approach, not that economic development and then we'll take care of environment. You may not actually have time and scope to take care of your environment with a level where the process is irreversible.
Okay, thank you. That means we have to, yes. Not only we have to give approach, we have to give importance not only to economic development, but sustainable development.
Right.
Sustainable development, not the development at the cost of environment. Okay,
Right.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So due to paucity of time, we'll be winding out, and you gave a very nice presentation. Thanks again, sir. So now it's time for vote of thanks. So now I request Head of the Department, Apurva Gogoi sir, to offer the vote of thanks.
Am I audible? Thank you, Ranju Bharali. Good afternoon, all. Honorable Principal and Chairperson of this webinar, respected resource person and Jugananda Borgohai sir, and all the respected participants. As all good things come to an end in life, so it is the webinar. On behalf of IQAC and Department of Economics, Sinamara College, in collaboration with Tundalal Borgohai City College, Dibrugarh, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar. At the outset, I wish to express my gratitude to our beloved and respected principal, Dr. Anjan Soikia, for his enthusiastic support and fruitful welcome address. It's my privilege to extend a special thanks to Dr. Sanjivananda Borgohai, Principal of IQSC, NLB City College, for his inaugural speech. I would like to big thanks to respected resource person, Dr. Binoy Goswami sir. Sir, we are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, and also making this webinar interesting and meaningful. I am happy to express vote of thanks to the organizing committee, teaching and non-teaching staff for their unflinching support and coordination. Our heartfelt thanks goes to our participants for your active cooperation. Finally, I wish and thanks to my beloved colleague, coordinator of IQSC Sinamara College, Ranju Bharali, and technical members for their consistent support and fulfill the webinar. With these warm words, a kind message, we move to the end of today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So I'll leave now. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Yeah,